Chapter 5 Tribe of Brahma. Shiva was walking in the verdant gardens of the royal guest house. His belongings were being moved into the royal guest house by Nandi along with an efficient aid of Kanakala. Shiva sat down on a comfortable bench overlooking a bed of red and white roses. The cool breeze in the open gardens brought a smile to his face. It was early afternoon and the garden was deserted. Shiva's thoughts kept going back to the conversation he had had with the emperor in the morning. Despite Daksha's controlled reaction, Shiva could understand that his blue throat was of great significance to the Meluhans, even to the emperor. It meant that the legend of the Nilkant, whatever it was not restricted to some small sect in Kashmir. If the emperor himself took it so seriously, all of Meluha must need the help of the Nilkant. But what the bloody hell do they want help for? They are so much more advanced than we are. His thoughts were interrupted by the sound of a dhol, a percussion instrument, and some ghungroos, which were anklets worn by dancers. Someone seemed to be practicing in the garden. A hedge separated the dance pavilion from the rest of the garden. Shiva himself, a passionate dancer, would normally have stepped in to move to the rhythm of the beat, but his mind was preoccupied. Some words floated in from the group that was dancing. "No, my lady, you must let yourself go," said a distinguished male voice. "It's not a chore that you have to do. Enjoy the dance. You are trying too hard to remember all the steps rather than letting the emotion of the dance flow through you." Then a lady's voice interjected. "My lady, Guruji is right. You are dancing correctly but not enjoying it. The concentration shows on your face. You have to relax a bit. Let me get the steps right, then I can learn to enjoy them." The last voice made Shiva's hair stand up on end. It was her. It was Sati. He quickly got up and followed the sound of the voices. Coming up from behind the hedge, he saw Sati dancing on a small platform. She had her hands raised rigidly to her sides as she enacted the various movements of the dance. She danced in keeping with the steps, first to the left and then to the right. She moved her shapely hips to the side and placed her hands precisely on her waist to convey the mood of the dance. He was mesmerized once again. However, he did notice that though Sati's steps were right, the Guruji had a point. She was moving in a mechanical manner. The uninhibited surrender that is characteristic of a natural dancer was absent. The varying emotions of bliss and anger in the story being told were missing in her movements. Also, unlike a proficient dancer, Sati wasn't using the entire platform. Her steps were small, which kept her movements restricted to the center. The dance teacher sat facing her and playing on a dhol to give Sati her beats. Her companion Kritika sat to the right. It was the dance teacher who noticed Shiva first and immediately stood up. Sati and Kritika turned around as well and were clearly astonished to find Shiva standing in front of them. Unlike Sati, Kritika could not control her surprise and blurted out, "Shiva?" Sati, in her characteristic composed and restrained manner, asked sincerely, "Is everything all right, Shiva? Do you need my help? How have you been? I have missed you. Don't you ever smile?" Shiva continued to stare at Sati, the words running through his mind, not on his lips. A smiling Kritika looked at Sati for her reaction. An even more serious Sati repeated very politely, "Can I help you with something, Shiva?" No, I don't need any help," replied Shiva as reality seemed to enter his consciousness once again. "I just happened to be in the area and I heard your dancing. Your conversation. Your dance steps were not loud enough to be heard. You were dancing very accurately. Actually, technically, it was all Kritika interjected. You know a bit about dancing, do you? Oh, not much, just a little, said Shiva to Kritika with a smile before turning rapidly back to Sati. My apologies, Sati, but Guruji is right. You were being far too methodical. As they say in the land that I come from, the mudras and the kriyas were all technically correct, but the bhav or emotion was missing. And a dance without bhav is like a body without a soul. When the emotions of the dancer participate, she would not even need to remember the steps. The steps come to you. The bhav is something that you can't learn. It comes to you if you can create the space in your heart for it. Sati listened patiently to Shiva without saying a word. Her eyebrows were raised slightly as the barbarian spoke. How could he know more than Suryavanshi about dancing? But she reminded herself that he had saved her life. She was duty bound to honor him. Kritika, however, took offense at this caste unmarked foreigner pretending that he knew more about dancing than her mistress. She glowered at Shiva. You dare to think that you know more than one of the best dancers in the realm? Shiva gathered that he may have caused some offense. He turned to Sati in all seriousness. I am terribly sorry. I didn't mean to insult you in any way. Sometimes I just keep talking without realizing what I am saying. No, no, replies Sati. You did not insult me. Perhaps you are right. I don't feel the essence of the dance as much as I should, but I'm sure that with Guruji's guidance, I will pick it up in due course. Seizing his chance to impress Sati, Shiva said, if it is alright with you, may I perform the dance? I am sure that I'm not as technically correct as you, but perhaps there may be something in the sentiment that will guide me through the correct steps. That was well put. She can't say no. Sati looked surprised. This was unexpected. Okay, she managed to say. A delighted Shiva immediately moved to the center of the stage. He took off the Angvastram covering his upper body and tossed it aside. Kritika's anger at the perceived insult to her mistress was quickly forgotten as she beheld Shiva's rippling physique. Sati, though, began to wonder how Shiva would bend such a muscular body into the contortions that were required of this dance. Flexibility was usually sacrificed by a human body at the altar of strength. Playing lightly on his tool, the Guruji asked Shiva, what beat are you comfortable with, young man? Shiva folded his hands into a namaste, bent low, and said, Guruji, could you just give me a minute, please? I need to prepare for the dance. Dancing was something Shiva was as accomplished in as in warfare. Facing east, he closed his eyes and bowed his head slightly. Then he went down on his knees and reverentially touched the ground with his head. Standing up, he turned his right foot outwards. Then he raised his left leg off the floor in a graceful arcing movement till the foot was above knee height. As he bent his right knee slightly to balance himself, his left foot bisected the angle between his right foot and his face. A calm breeze provided relief to the silence that enveloped the audience. Enraptured, the Guruji, Sati, and Kritika gazed at Shiva with amazement. They did not understand what he was doing, but could feel the energy that Shiva's stance was emanating. Shiva raised both his arms in an elegant circular movement to the sides to bring them in line with his shoulder. His right hand was holding an imaginary damru, a small, handheld percussion instrument. His left hand was open with its palm facing upward, almost like it was receiving some divine energy. He held this pose for some time. His glowing face indicated that Shiva was withdrawing into his inner world. His right hand then moved effortlessly forward, almost as if it had a mind of its own. Its palm was now open and facing the audience. Somehow, the posture seemed to convey a feeling of protectiveness to a very surprised Sati. Almost languidly, his left hand glided at shoulder height and came to rest with the palm facing downwards and pointing at the left foot. Shiva held this pose for some time and then began the dance. Sati stared in wonder at Shiva. He was performing the same steps as her, yet it looked like a completely different dance. His lyrical hand movements graced the mystical motion of his body. How could a body this muscular also be so flexible? The Guruji tried helplessly to get his dhol to give Shiva the beats, but clearly that wasn't necessary, as it was Shiva's feet which were leading the beat for the dhol. The dance conveyed the various emotions of a woman. In the beginning, it conveyed her feelings of joy and lust as she cavorted with her husband. The next emotion was anger and pain at the treacherous killing of her mate. Despite his rough masculine body, Shiva managed to convey the tender yet strong emotions of a grieving woman. Shiva's eyes were open, but the audience realized that he was oblivious to them. Shiva was in his own world. He did not dance for the audience. He did not dance for appreciation. He did not dance for the music. He danced only for himself. In fact, it almost seemed like his dance was guided by a celestial force. Sati realized that Shiva was right. He had opened himself and the dance had come to him. After what seemed like an eternity, the dance came to an end, with Shiva's eyes firmly shut. He held the final pose for a long time as the glow slowly left him. It was almost as if he was returning to this world. Shiva gradually opened his eyes to find Sati, Kritika, and the Guruji gaping at him, wonder struck. The Guruji was the first to find his voice. Who are you? I'm Shiva. No, not the body. I mean, who are you? Shiva crooked his eyes together in a frown and repeated, I am Shiva. Guruji, may I ask a question? Asked Sati. Of course you may. Turning to Shiva, Sati asked, what was that you did before the dance? Was it some kind of preparatory step? Yes, it's called the Nataraj pose, the pose of the Lord of Dance. The Nataraj pose? What does it do? It aligned my energy to the universal energy so that the dance emerges on its own. I don't understand. Well, it's like this. Amongst our people, we believe that everything in the world is a carrier of Shakti or energy. The plants, animals, objects, or bodies, everything carries and transmits energy. But the biggest carrier of energy that we are physically in touch with is Mother Earth herself, the ground that we walk on. What does that have to do with your dance? You need energy for everything that you do. You have to source the energy from around you. It comes from people, from objects, from Mother Earth herself. You have to ask for it respectfully. And your Nataraj pose helps you to access any energy that you want? Asked the Guruji. It depends on what I want the energy for. The Nataraj pose helps me to ask respectfully for energy for a dance that wants to come to me. If I wanted the energy for a thought to come to me, I would have to sit cross-legged and meditate. It seems that the energy favors you, young man, said the Guruji. You are the Nataraj, the Lord of Dance. Oh no, exclaimed Shiva. I am just a medium for the boundless Nataraj energy. Anyone can be the medium. Well, then you are a particularly efficient medium, young man, said the Guruji. Turning to Sati, he said, "You don't need me if you have a friend like him, my child. If you want to be taught by Shiva, it would be my honor to excuse myself." Shiva looked at Sati expectantly. This had gone much better than he expected. "Say yes, damn it." Sati, however, seemed to withdraw into herself. Shiva was startled to see the first signs of vulnerability in this woman. She bowed her head, an act which did not suit her proud bearing, and whispered softly, "I mean, no disrespect to anyone, but perhaps I do not have the skills to receive training of this level." "But you do have the skills," argued Shiva. "You have the bearing, you have the heart, you can very easily reach that level." Sati looked up at Shiva, her eyes showing just the slightest hint of dumbness. The profound sadness they conveyed took Shiva aback. "What the hell is going on?" "I am very far from my level, Shiva," mumbled Sati. As she said that, Sati found the strength to control herself again. The politely proud manner returned to her face. The mask was back. "It is time for my puja. With your permission, Guruji, I must leave." She turned towards Shiva. "It was a pleasure meeting you again, Shiva." Before Shiva could respond, Sati turned quickly and left, followed by Kritika. The Guruji continued to stare at a flummoxed Shiva. At length, he bent low with a formal namaste towards Shiva and said, "It has been my life's honor to see you dance." Then he too turned and left. Shiva was left wondering about the inscrutable ways of the Meluhans. Late in the morning of next day, Shiva and Nandi entered the private royal office to find Daksha, Parvateshwar and Kanakala waiting for them. A surprised Shiva said, "I'm sorry, Your Highness. I thought we were to meet 4 hours into the second prahar. I hope I haven't kept you waiting." Daksha, who had stood up with a formal namaste, bowed low and said, "No, my lord, you don't need to apologize. We came in early so that we wouldn't keep you waiting. It was our honor to wait for you." Parvateshwar rolled his eyes at the extreme subservience that his emperor, the ruler of the greatest civilization ever established, showed towards this barbarian. Shiva, controlling his extreme surprise at being referred to as the Lord by the emperor, bowed low towards Daksha with a namaste and sat down. "My lord, before I start telling you about the legend of the Nilkant, do you have any questions that you would like to ask?" Enquired Daksha. The most obvious question came to Shiva's mind. Why is the holy lake's name is my blessed blue throat so important? But his instincts told him that though his appeared to be the most obvious question, it could not be answered unless he understood more about the society of Meluha itself. "It may sound like an unusual question, Your Highness," said Shiva, "but may I ask you what your age is?" Daksha looked at Kanakala with surprise, then turned back towards Shiva with an amazed smile. He said, "You are exceptionally intelligent, my lord. You have asked the most pertinent question first." Crinkling his face into a conspiratorial grin, Daksha continued, "Last month I turned 184. Shiva was stunned. Daksha did not look a day older than 30 years. In fact, nobody in Meluha looked older except for the Pandit that Shiva had met at the Brahma temple. "So Nandi is more than 100 years old. How can this be, Your Highness?" asked a flabbergasted Shiva. "What sorcery make this possible?" "There is no sorcery at all, my lord," explained Daksha. "What makes this possible is the brilliance of our scientists who make a potion called the Somras, the drink of the gods. Taking the Somras at defined times not only postpone our death considerably, but it also allows us to live our entire lives as if we are in the prime of our youth, mentally and physically. But what is the Somras? Where does it come from? Who invented it? So many questions, my lord, smiled Daksha, but I will try my best to answer them one by one. The Somras was invented many thousands of years ago by one of the greatest Indian scientists that ever lived. His name was Lord Brahma. I think there is a temple dedicated to him that I visited on my way to Devagri at a place named Meru. Yes, my lord, that is where he is said to have lived and worked. Lord Brahma was a prolific inventor, but he never kept any of the benefits of his inventions to himself. He was always interested in ensuring that his inventions were used for the good of mankind. He realized early on that a potion as powerful as the Somras could be misused by evil men. So he implemented an elaborate system of controls of its use. What kind of controls? He did not give the Somras freely to everyone, continued Daksha. After conducting a rigorous countrywide survey, he chose a select group of adolescent boys of impeccable character, one from each of the 7 regions of ancient India. He chose young boys so that they would live with him at the Gurukul and he could mold their character into becoming selfless helpers of society. The Somras medicine was administered only to these boys. Since these boys were practically given an additional life due to the Somras, they came to be known as the Dvija or twice born. The power of the Somras combined with the tutelage of Lord Brahma along with their other inventions resulted in this select group achieving a revelational status never seen before. They honed their minds to achieve almost superhuman intelligence. The ancient Indian title for man of knowledge was Rishi. Since Lord Brahma's chosen men were 7 in number, they came to be known as the Saptarishi. And these Saptarishi used their skills for the good of society. Yes, my lord. Lord Brahma instituted strict rules of conduct for the Saptarishis. They were not allowed to rule or to practice any trade, essentially anything that would have accrued personal gain. They had to use their skills to perform the task of priests, teachers, doctors, amongst other intellectual professions where they could use their powers to help society. They were not allowed to charge anything for their services and had to live on alms and donations from others. Tough service rules, joked Shiva with a slight wink at Parvateshwar. Parvateshwar did not respond, but Daksha, Kanakala, and Nandi guffawed loudly. Shiva took a quick look at the prahar lamp by the window. It was almost the 3rd prahar, the time that Sati would probably come out to dance. But they followed their codes of conduct strictly, my lord, continued Daksha. Over time, as their responsibilities grew, the Saptarishis selected many more people to join their tribe. Their followers swore by the same code that the Saptarishis lived by and were also administered the Somras. They devoted their lives to the pursuit of knowledge and for the well being of society without asking for any material gain in return. It is for this reason that society accorded these people almost devotional respect. Over the ages, the Saptarishis and their followers came to be known as the tribe of Brahma or simply the Brahmins. But as with all good systems, over a long period of time, some people stopped following the Brahmin code, right? Absolutely, my lord, answered Daksha, regretfully shaking his head at the familiar human frailty. As many millennia went by, some of the Brahmins forgot the strict code that Lord Brahma had enforced and the Saptarishis had propagated. They started misusing the awesome power that the Somras gave them. Some Brahmins started using their influence over a large number of people to conquer kingdoms and start ruling. Some Brahmins misused other inventions of the Saptarishis as well as Lord Brahma and accumulated fabulous wealth for themselves. And some of the Brahmins interjected Kanakala with a particular sense of humor, even rebelled against the Saptarishi Uttradhikaris. Saptarishi Uttradhikaris? Enquired Shiva. They were the successor of the Saptarishis, my lord, clarified Kanakala. When any of the Saptarishis knew that he was coming to the end of his mortal life, he would appoint a man from his Gurukul as his successor. This successor was treated for all practical purposes like the Saptarishi himself. So rebelling against the Saptarishi Uttradhikaris was like rebelling against the Saptarishi themselves. Yes, my lord, answered Kankara. And the most worried part of this corruption was that it was being led by the higher chosen tribe Brahmins, like the eagles, peacocks, and the swans. In fact, due to their higher status, these chosen tribes were actually not even allowed to work under the Kshatriyas and Vaishyas, lest they get enticed by the lure of the material world. Yet they succumbed to the temptations of evil before anyone else. And chosen tribes like yours, the pigeons, remained loyal to the old code despite working for the Kshatriyas? Asked Shiva. Yes, my lord, replied Kankala, her chest puffed up with pride. The town bell sounded out the beginning of the third pahar. All the people in the room, including Shiva, said a quick short prayer welcoming the new time chapter. Shiva had learned some of the ways of the Meluhans. A Shudra came in, reset the Prahar lamp precisely, and left as quietly as he came. Shiva reminded himself that any time now Sati would start her dance lessons in the garden. So, what revolution caused the change, Your Highness? Asked Shiva, turning to Daksha. Your Parvateshwar and Nandi are Kshatriyas, and yet you clearly have taken the Somras. In fact, I have seen people of all four castes in your empire look youthful and healthy. This means that the Somras is now given to everybody. This change must have obviously happened due to a revolution, right? Yes, my lord, and the revolution was known as Lord Ram, the greatest emperor that ever lived. Jai Shri Ram. Jai Shri Ram, repeated everyone in the room. His ideas and leadership transformed the society of Meluha dramatically. Continued Daksha. In fact, the course of history itself was radically altered. But before I continue with Lord Ram's tale, may I make a suggestion? Of course, Your Highness. It is into the third pahar now. Should we move to our dining room and have some lunch before continuing with the story? I think it is an excellent idea to have lunch, Your Highness, said Shiva. But may I be excused for some time? There is another pressing engagement that I have. Could we perhaps continue our conversation tomorrow if that is all right with you? Kanakala's face fell immediately, while Parvateshwar's was covered with a contemptuous grin. Daksha, however, kept a smiling face. Of course, we could meet tomorrow, my lord. Will the beginning of the second hour of the second prahar be all right with you? Absolutely, Your Highness. My apologies for this inconvenience. Not at all, my lord, said an ever smiling Daksha. Can one of my chariots take you to your destination? That's very kind of you, Your Highness, but I will go there by myself. My apologies once again. Bidding a namaste to everyone in the room, Shiva and Nandi walked out quickly. Kanakala looked accusingly At Daksha, the emperor just nodded his head, gesturing with his hands for calm. It's all right. We are meeting tomorrow, aren't we? My lord, we are running out of time, said Kanakala. The Nilkant needs to accept his responsibilities immediately. Give him time, Kanakala. We have waited for so long. A few days is not going to cause a collapse. Parvateshwar got up suddenly, bowed low towards Daksha, and said, "With your permission, Your Highness, may I be excused? There are more practical matters that need my attention as compared to educating a barbarian." "You will speak of him with respect, Parvateshwar," growled Kanakala. "He is the Nilkant. I will speak of him with respect only when he has earned it through some real achievements," snarled Parvateshwar. "I respect only achievements, nothing else. That is the fundamental rule of Lord Ram. Only your karma is important, not your birth, not your sex, and certainly not the color of your throat. Our entire society is based on merit. Or have you forgotten that?" "Enough," exclaimed Daksha. "I respect the Nilkant. That means everybody will respect him."